back. You're watching a special broadcast on DD India, India-Brazil Global South Partners. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is in Brasilia on the second leg of his visit to that Latin American country. He was there in Rio for the 17th BRICS Summit, and now he is in Brasilia. This is the first visit of an Indian Prime Minister to Brazil, as far as a state visit is concerned, in 6 decades.
Yes, and there Prime Minister Modi, the first engagement, if you can call it an engagement, was that he was accorded a grand ceremonial reception, and boy was it grand, had multiple elements to it, a very surprise element as well, a devotional one, all the way from India there. But you can see the beginning, in the beginning, the shots, the cavalcade, the grandeur of the military band, everything, the national anthems being performed too. It was quite a display of, well, the kind of respect that can be accorded to a head of state or government, in this case head of government, which is Prime Minister Modi of India. State visit indeed, beginning with a fitting note in Brasilia.
Right, and joining us now is Ambassador J.K. Tripathi, former Indian ambassador. He had served as Consul General in Sao Paulo, where a lot of Indians are, by the way, out of the 4,000 that are there currently. He had served for 3 years, from 2008 to 2011. You've seen the kind of reception the Prime Minister was accorded. Would you say that the red carpet has been rolled out and befitting, considering the strategic trust and ties?
Well, the reception that the Prime Minister got was simply grand, simply representative of the importance that Brazil gives to India and the chemistry that you have seen between the two leaders. The two leaders, of course, Prime Minister Modi is more educated, but he also has come from grassroots. President Inácio de Lula, he is 8th standard dropout, but he has risen from grassroots. He knows the nerves of his people, and therefore the chemistry between the two is monumental.
And they have a lot of shared values too.
They have a lot of shared values, and they are both developing. They are both members of
G20.
Global G20.
Yeah, in recent years they met each other quite a few times.
Global South. They are both very important members of BRICS. Because if you combine both economies, then it becomes more than $6 trillion, which is only third after the economy of US and economy of China. So this itself speaks volumes about both relationships. But unfortunately, we have not paid much attention to Brazil or Argentina in the past. As you have mentioned, last state visit from India to Brazil was in 1968 by Mrs. Gandhi. After that, no state visit. This country is 2.5 times, has 2.5 times of area than India. This country has four time zones. This country has iron ore enough to supply the world for more than 500 years.
Yes.
This is biggest soya producer, biggest ethanol producer. So, but we are not. I don't know why.
It also has one lung of the world in the Amazon forest.
But yes, and this country has lot of plants of medicinal value that our Ayurveda.
Yes, the biodiversity is tremendous.
An agreement was signed between the two countries in 2020. Better late than never. But now at least we are doing something. Space, energy, agriculture, ethanol. Brazil is the country which 20 years back they started mixing ethanol 50%. We are still striving for 20%. Our trade with Brazil is a paltry 11.8
12.2 last
12
24,
billion
25.
less than that with Mexico, which is far too smaller. Almost similar to that with Nigeria, which doesn't stand
But
anywhere.
why is that the case? Why do you think that this relationship was not really invested into by previous dispensations, and do you feel that there has been a sea change in recent years, particularly from 2014 when Prime Minister Modi
Yes.
emerged on the scene at the center of affairs in Delhi?
You see, earlier there was a difficulty, there was a stumbling block, and that was the mental block.
There was
Because
a
it
political
is
issue as well.
geographically is too far. Geographically, it is 18 hours flight. So
Is there a direct flight?
But
between
Brazil also
India
had
and
a
no,
problem,
there is no
No
direct
direct
flight.
flight.
There was no direct flight. There is no direct flight even now.
Yeah.
The nearest flight is from Sao Paulo to Dubai, or Rio to Dubai and here. So that, and then lack of
connections to Doha
information
as well.
about culture, about people, about their economy, about the trade in our traders. Our people rush to Switzerland for location shootings. Our filmmakers. Brazil provides far better thing. You go to Amazon forest, you go to Manaus, you go to Iguazu Falls, the biggest falls in the world. But that mental block. But
So when
luckily,
did the inflection point come in the relationship, and
Pardon?
how? When and how did the inflection point come in the
I
relationship?
think the change came after 2014. From 1968 till today, we have signed 62 agreements or MOUs with Brazil. 27 of them were after 2014. So that itself shows how neglected Latin America was in eyes of Indian politicians. So there is a lot can be done. We can have cooperation in field of ethanol. We can have cooperation in field of agriculture. We can be a hub.
But are you saying that we can make up for lost time, because there were opportunities that were there that India could have capitalized on in the years gone by, but then since we did not, someone else filled the gap, and now the kind of space that would have been there in the past simply does not
Yes,
exist.
even now, though we have missed the opportunity, missed the bus, but even now there is time. It is time. We should not do it now. Well, Chinese have started farming there, going in agriculture, but still there is a scope. There is a scope for us to be a hub of their iron ore. They had made Dubai hub, but if India is made a hub, say Mumbai or Chennai, then probably to all the through entire Eastern Asia, we can
West Asia.
we can supply. Then there is another probability, like I said, medicinal plants, Ayurveda. They have very acute, very deep interest in India.
Where
Why
is the
don't
maximum
we
potential which is untapped? In which sector is the maximum untapped potential as far as India is concerned?
Agriculture 1, space 2, film production 3. We can produce films here, send them for editing there. There are Brazilian filmmakers connected with Indian filmmakers. So that oil and gas, Brazil sits on a huge reserve of 80 billion barrel oil. We
India
are
has started
exploiting.
making
We are exploiting.
investments in the
No,
oil
we
and
have
gas.
invested.
Upstream and downstream
OVL
sectors
has
both.
ONGC Videsh Limited has invested in 2 oil fields.
Half of the money that India has invested cumulatively is
Then-
in the oil and gas field.
Then we import crude oil from Brazil. It is refined in Jamnagar Reliance refinery, and then the refined oil is sent back.
Yeah, diesel mostly.
And this forms a bulk of our trade. If you reduce that, if you take it out, then our trade is not very significant. So these are the things that we can exploit. Then, as I said, space, fishery. Brazil and India have got almost same length of coastline. They can cooperate in fisheries. They can cooperate in alternative energies like ethanol, etc.
Yeah, we haven't even mentioned the digital and the artificial intelligence fair yet.
Yeah.
Yes, that. And then why don't our people go and establish refineries there? It
There
will
is
be
a huge
investment
scope of
and
investment
profit.
across sectors, you are saying, and oil and gas is where we are most invested, but there also there's a lot of scope going forward. And besides, in other sectors, Professor Gulshan Sachdeva continues to be with us. Professor Sachdeva, even if we look at people-to-people ties, Gautam will take up the digital cooperation and AI in a bit, but in terms of cinematic collaboration, here Ambassador Tripathi said that there are beautiful landscapes in Brazil and Indian films can be shot there and there can be greater collaboration. I understand in October last year, India was the focus country in the Sao Paulo International Film Festival. So I think there is an awakening as far as India and Brazil are concerned on the potential going forward even in cinematic collaboration, post-production collaboration. Do you think that these areas are also important considering that they bring people closer, there's a better understanding, and perhaps that also adds like a domino effect to the overall relationship, including trade and commerce?
No, I think we have to move in all fronts, as I think Ambassador Tripathi was mentioning. There we have missed the bus as far as Latin America was concerned. Now we are making very serious effort to get into this region because of various, for strategic, political, economic, and people-to-people contacts. What you said. Now there are issues. I mean, because of connectivity, because of lack of of the knowledge of language, etc. All these issues were there. That is why the reason such a huge country. And if you look at the number of Indians, there are just a couple of thousand, maybe 4 or 5,000 people are there only in Brazil, which is not the case in many other countries in the world. And now the challenge, I mean, there are huge opportunities, as I think we have been discussing, and all other your guests have mentioned that in all different areas, whether you look at agriculture, you look at defense, you look at energy, whether traditional energy or renewable energy. I think all those areas are there where a lot can be done. But there is also a huge challenge now because somebody else, as I think you're mentioning, has filled this gap. And today, when we are talking about India's trade, about 10-12 billion, and there you also have, you look at their trade with China, it's 180 billion.
Yes.
So that's the kind of opportunity which exists there. And unlike other places, Brazil doesn't have a deficit with China. They have 120 billion exports to, China.
But they mostly send raw material. China
Raw material,
processes them and refines them.
From Brazilian perspective, they have those are the things which they are going to sell, and these are the market which has been provided by other countries. So there is challenge now, but there is also so they have also entered in this. And we also not just have to look Brazil in isolation. We also have to work, I think, with Mercosur as a whole grouping.
Right.
If you look at Mercosur today, I think this is the fourth largest grouping after European Union, NAFTA, and ASEAN. You have a 300 million population where you have countries like Argentina, Brazil, and Paraguay and Uruguay and Venezuela and Bolivia. So all these countries now we have it's not that something we didn't do earlier. I mean, we had long back, we had a preferential trade agreement with the Mercosur. So about 400 products, 450 products from both sides. There is certain concessional tariff, but still we have to move further. And many of these countries also produce a lot of agriculture products, so that could also be a challenge. How do you really grow trade? And recently, Last year they had trade agreement after 25 years of negotiation with the European Union, the Mercosur. And
And
just
now I think Brazil is the chair of Mercosur since the 1st of July. So
Perhaps,
that's an added
perhaps what is
advantage too.
merited is having a relook at this preferential trade agreement, and also figuring out why this has not led to the kind of levels of trade that exist with other countries. Another country, in fact, in our nation, in our region, in our neighborhood itself, and see what can be done to change that situation,
No,
Professor
I think
Sachdeva.
we are looking at how we can really improve from Mercosur, whatever the preferential trade we have so far, to maybe many more commodities could be added into this. And ultimately, of course, you have to have some kind of free trade agreement. They had last year, they signed with the European Union. Just few days back, they have signed with EFTA countries. But of course, at the moment, even the EU thing is stuck because the French and Spanish farmers are protesting because they feel that a lot of agriculture products from Brazil and beef from Argentina, because apparently in Argentina they produce the best beef in the world. So many of the Europeans, they are kind of worried, as farmers particularly. But the opportunities which exist, and there are areas, particularly in defense, I think we are working.
Okay.
We also have a huge defense budget in Brazil, and in
About $25 billion.
many of those products India is now exporting to many countries. I think we would also be looking there. At the same time, their civil aviation industry is pretty advanced. I mean, we are also buying, our airlines are buying, the planes from Brazil. So there are a lot of opportunities in that sense. Somehow this area, because of, distance, because of language, because of lack of connectivity, and somehow lack of our imagination, we were not able to really penetrate the way actually we should have been in the Latin American market. But now perhaps we are trying for the last many years, and I think results would be seen. But the problem now is, as I was saying, the competition is tough. Others have entered, and China is also very, not just only in trade. I mean, in some of the countries, they also have belt and road projects, etc. So you
Yes.
are, but we are also in one sense, there is a certain amount of competition. Yes, you can see, but we are in BRICS, we are working together with China. So certain things on larger issues on climate change and others, I think there are many possibilities that
Right. Let
countries
me
can.
also ask Ambassador Tripathi about this the preferential trade agreement with Mercosur. Professor Tripathi, what can Ambassador Tripathi, I'm sorry, what can you tell us about this preferential trade agreement in terms of what its track record has been, and now that there is an era of really striking bilateral trade deals, is that something that should be looked at as well with the member countries of the Mercosur? We've seen Prime Minister Modi having bilateral meetings with some of the Mercosur leaders in Rio itself on the sidelines of the BRICS summit. They were invited there. I remember Bolivia, Uruguay leaders met Prime Minister Modi in Rio this time around as well before he came to Brasilia. So what do you feel is the scope there?
We'll have to find, we'll have to strike a balance between the preferential trade agreement with regional bodies and bilateral trade agreements. Because you see, I think we should start with, we should now focus more on the bilateral trade when it comes
Because in
to
any
Latin
case, trade deals, even bilateral ones, are tough to negotiate and they take time. When it involves multiple countries, then it takes even longer.
Yes.
We've seen that in the case of the EU.
But in Latin America, the two biggest countries are Brazil and Argentina.
Correct.
So if we can handle Brazil and Argentina, our business with Brazil and Argentina, then the smaller countries, we have very good business with Mexico. Mexico, our trade with Mexico is much more than about the same as our trade with Brazil.
So are you saying that focus on bilateral FTAs with Argentina
First,
as
yes.
well as with Brazil?
Brazil.
Okay. Because we are looking at taking the trade volume, bilateral trade volume with Brazil itself to around $20 billion. Currently, we are at $12 billion. So, do you think that having an FTA will be enable this target achievement?
Yes, it will, and we will have to find new areas of cooperation.
Which are quite a few, you said, which are untapped.
Quite a few. Like I said, in oil and gas, we should go there and invest We can establish the factories, refineries there. There is one thing very interesting fact I would like to mention about animal husbandry and cattle breeding. In 1896,
Yes.
the then Brazilian government requested the British Indian government to send some cows and bulls, some cattle
Yes, we ran that story.
from Gir.
Yes.
6,000 were sent, out of which when they reached only a few hundred perhaps survived.
The royal family of Bhavnagar had
But
sent
with the genetic mutation and genetic engineering, they have now become the biggest dairy producer, biggest meat producer. And on India, it is good that now on Indian government's request, the semen of their cattle flock is being sent to India for improving their race,
Yield.
improving the genes. So these are the things which we culturally, if you, my idea is that the economic trade or political relationship between any two countries, for that you need basic homework is that you have to know about each other country. You have to trust. You have to have a feeling of trust.
And how do you change the perception that, Brazil, that's so far, you have to take so many flights, to travel there, and it takes so much time, it's so tiring. So maybe have better code share arrangements? I don't know.
Well, Mexico is equally far.
US is equally far.
But our trade with Mexico is
If you have to go
almost
to the west
at
coast
par
of the
with our
US,
trade with
it's
Brazil.
equally far as traveling to Sao Paulo or
So
to
that's
Rio.
the mental block. Canada is equally far.
Yes, Vancouver.
We don't have any direct flight to Vancouver or Alberta. So we have to change this, and then knowledge of each other's rules and regulations is a must. Because my experience is, when I was there, many Indian businessmen, they wanted to import sugar from there. And many delegations came. Even Sharad Pawar led a delegation which
But sugar is a regulated commodity in India.
which invested in a Renuka sugar mills, greenfield, $400 million, which is not working now. But many businessmen came. I joined the negotiation, but then the difference in rules and regulations, that also is a stumbling block. Like from there, they say that once the goods are FOB, goods are on the ship, and inspectors have inspected and given you certificate, line of credit should be operational, should pay money. Here they say we will pay money
When we receive.
the goods at our port. So there is no common meeting ground. So these things, but as I said, the good thing is that out of more than 62 agreements that we have signed with Brazil so far during the last, say, 60 years or so, more than about half of them
Almost half,
were
yeah.
done after 2014. So which shows a change in attitude.
And there will be 4 more today, I think, a little later down the line.
There is change in attitude, which is very welcome change.
Yes, but now you are saying that there is a change in attitude and there is a strategic trust, because we are coordinating on a whole lot of things since 2006, since India and Brazil entered into a strategic partnership. There's nuclear energy cooperation, there's space cooperation, there's defense cooperation, all part of the strategic space. So in terms of defense cooperation, because we expect a pact on this by the end of the day as per the Indian ambassador there, what is it that Brazil is looking from India, and what is it that India is looking from Brazil?
I think as regards defense
There's a
cooperation,
pact in the pipeline on counter-terrorism and information sharing.
yeah, probably
Two separate
some
parts.
of our defense products to sell it to them. Then maybe some investments there in Brazil, joint investment, and some of the related investment or the tertiary activities related to defense production. Maybe joint collaboration can be formed here in India as well. because they are investing in steel, they are investing in software also, they are investing in ATM, they are investing in so many things. Maybe they are investing in software so they can.
So since you're talking of software and
Yes, I wanted to bring that in. Well, I was trying to slip in India's digital capabilities, DPI, digital public infrastructure, the kind. The world has been marveling at it for quite some time now, and I think President Lula has also marveled at it at his own level. So, do you feel that that is something also that could be an import for Brazil from India?
Yes, that can be possible. And coming back again to defense cooperation, let me tell you that Brazil has sold 5 Embraer planes. Embraers are middle level planes.
business
And 5
jets, used as business jets in India.
5
They may
Embraer
transport aircraft as well.
they have been given to Indian armed forces as well as for use of some of our VIPs. So that's one part of defense production. We have purchased Embraer planes, we have fitted them with surveillance and other equipments necessary. I will not like to go into detail that, but that is one part of ongoing defense production. Then we can probably invest there for making some defense equipments. Shipbuilding.
Well, Operation Sindoor itself has produced a shopping list of sorts for many nations,
Yes.
Brazil included.
Yes, certainly. BrahMos to be one. Then our what was it?
Akash,
Akash, Pinak, all that can be our naval ships, our frigates, etc. also can be part of it. So
Yeah, Scorpion submarines, they wanted maintenance help from India for the
Yes.
maintenance of Scorpion submarines.
yes, so there is shipbuilding. There's a lot that can be achieved. And
You
I am
mentioned
sure.
space as well. Let me bring in Professor Sachdeva on this. Professor Sachdeva, we've already sent the satellites up in space, but there is a tremendous scope, the kind of capabilities that India has in terms of not just launching rockets. Now we're sending humans into space as well, and we have ambitions in terms of putting up our own space station. Do you feel that that is something that Brazil would have a lot of interest in?
Right. Along with the defense sector, where I think we are not just talking about exports, but also certain kind of co-production, because Brazil is also having a lot of capabilities. I mean, their civil aviation sector is pretty strong, and you are mentioning about digital public infrastructure in India. And I think digital public infrastructure in Brazil is also pretty robust. I mean, we have our own UPI, but they also have their own PIX, which is widely the similar kind of the real-time transactions, and is also widely used within Brazil. And they would also like we are trying to promote UPI. I think Brazil is also would like to promote some of their initiative like PIX. Now the convergence is that we really have to work together and see what are the real benefits of working. Is there any similarities? To some extent, they are very similar. There might be a little bit differences, and then we can see that maybe jointly we can work actually in third countries as well. Because if we are talking about global South solidarity, and these are two important countries, it's not just, in fact, the scope of working with Brazil is not just only about bilateral. That, of course, is very much there. You have to build from the bilateral, but the strategic and political understanding between India and Brazil is very, very strong. Certain economic potential has to be given. Potential is there. We have to push further in many more areas, as we have seen the potential is there. But we also can really work in so many other countries. And Latin America, again, is one area, particularly in the area of development cooperation. You look at, if you look at all the triangular cooperation projects. Now, triangular cooperation projects are that where, two countries work together, and then they work in third developing country. I mean, like we have done most of the, our triangular cooperation projects with the United States, with Germany, with UK, mainly in Africa, and I think only one triangular cooperation project have now with Germany, which we are working in Peru. in Latin America. But globally, Latin America is an area where more than 50% all the triangular cooperation projects are there. And there you have, countries, particularly Brazil, Mexico, Argentina, and many others as well. They are all active and working with other countries. So here, in fact, we can actually put, we can work with, with some of our partners in the West, work with Brazil, and also we can have actually projects in third countries there as well. So a lot of possibilities in which we can work with Brazil, and they have a lot of ambitions. They are also certainly in the strategic autonomy, the way they define, and they also give shape to the narrative of the global South. So there is if the global really I would say the world is changing, and within the changing world, if country like Brazil and India and many other partners within the global South, we have seen already in BRICS that certain kind of the voices have been made, and Brazil would, of course, even in the climate and other issues, would be very in the forefront in the next 1 year. And that we will be taking the presidency of the BRICS, where again we'll be working with all our partners. So a lot of areas, and the G20 again from India it went to Brazil. So whether you are working bilaterally, whether we are working in third countries or we are working globally, and you have already mentioned that all these areas, and even in the United Nations reforms. I mean Brazil was one with G4. We have been working for many years to reform, and then we are both looking for a permanent seat in the US Security Council. So the agenda is really huge, but somehow we talk about this whenever we meet at major forums, but then we move away. And there is also politics, domestic politics also changes. In Brazil, domestic politics also affects your integration with other parts. When we have Mr. Bolsonaro, of course, he was also here. He was also our chief guest in our Republic Day parade. I mean, a few years ago. But things have changed. So the politics has changed within Brazil. So now the global politics, global geopolitics has also changed, and I think there is a tremendous scope for India and Brazil to work together and set the narrative for the global South together.
Also, Professor Sachdev, I understand that in terms of digital cooperation, there is a lot in the pipeline in terms of cooperation in AI, supercomputing, quantum computing. There is data protection, management architecture, this 5G, 6G network. So is this emerging then as a new area of cooperation between both sides, much in tune with the times?
Well, I mean, this is one area where, in fact, in India, of course, would like to work with all of them, because we feel that this is the area where we have strength. Earlier, we were thinking that we have strength only in certain, IT-related services, but now things are moving. And AI is one where I think we have to really work with many partners together. Still a long way to go for India. The major players in the United States and China, they are quite far ahead than others. And with other partners and everybody, because we also know that this is one area where things are going to, dominate through AI in all the industrial processes, your agricultural processes, and everything else which is going to happen in any economy would be largely influenced by AI. So we really have to work with all partners. Of course, I mean, in certain areas, you have to work with major countries like United States, and also some in Europe, but there are others. Everybody has certain capacities. AI, quantum, these are the areas we are working with others as well, but we have to really, this will happen more when we have more people-to-people linkages. Those linkages are still not there. Because less tourists go there, less number of academic linkages are there between Indian academic institutions, research institutions, and the Brazilian and Latin American institutions. Traditionally, they had not been really much. I mean, at some point of time, there was certain more linkages, I would say, during the non-alignment period, when many of the intellectual traditions, we actually worked together more with Latin America. Then things move, and then things also move politically within these countries. Like, look at in Argentina what has happened. I mean, just during the expansion, they wanted to be member of BRICS, And then the political change, then you have a new government there, and then they just said that we don't want to be part, because that's a very different kind of, right-wing political government is there in Argentina. So all those domestic political changes and domestic, because politics is very, very alive in Latin America. And there is also another problem, because, you also have a lot of inequality, despite that they have, serious, I mean, they have very good, per capita incomes in Latin American countries. So those things have also social discontent, social problems which these countries have faced, and that has also led to different kind of political upheavals. And in the past, many countries in Latin America also, you have many economic difficulties, hyperinflation, which still there even in in Argentina.
Hmm.
This is, I mean, in last 1 year, things have relatively calmed down in Argentina, but things are pretty problematic there as well. So, all these kind of political, economic difficulty, and that is precisely one of the reasons perhaps many of the Indian business people, they did not venture into these markets, because they thought perhaps these are not very secure markets, difficult markets to operate. There is a tendency among Indian business community, they go to more to the stable markets. But these are the market where there are more opportunities. And if we don't go there, because these are large economies and also capacities in many areas, and many of the thing, raw material which is really required for the next generation of industrialization will come from many of these countries. So we have to really work with them, and I'm glad that Prime Minister has gone there, and I'm sure momentum will. We hope that momentum continues after this, and then we'll have much more interest among business community, among academics, and I mean ordinary people to go and travel more and more. And then only, I think, once we have those strong people-to-people linkages,
Yes.
then other things are going
So,
to
if you
follow.
talk about people-to-people to linkages, one, of course, when you talk about technology and how things should move forward there, it's more important, and an effort is being made there as well through the India-Brazil Startup Bridge to ensure that there's more market access for startups in each other's markets, especially where deep tech is concerned, because that's where a lot of thrust is coming. The other is, and I'm surprised we haven't talked about it so far, is football, which is the largest, the biggest sport in the world. And Brazil has a tremendous, not just a football industry, a football culture, it's sporting culture is tremendous. And that's something, again, perhaps we can hear more from Ambassador Tripathi about as to what needs to be done over there. And what is the scope there?
Exactly. Football is so popular there that
They play it everywhere.
that divorce takes place between the couple, because husband is fan of one club and wife is a fan of another club. Then they have a full-fledged digitized football museum.
Yes.
I mean, they are so, and children at the small age, little age, they are put into academies and they start getting training. So we can probably, yes, few of their footballers had come here in the past, but that can be
Institutionalized.
We have
Maybe we can help them with cricket and they can help us
I mean,
with
we can have coaches. I mean, football is becoming more and more popular in India. So many football clubs
we have signed an
popping
MOU
up.
on sports.
There's a league that is happening now in India as well.
Yeah, we have signed an MOU on sports with Brazil few years back, but I don't know how far it has gone, how far has it been successful. Coming to football, then one more thing I would like to say, one more area which is very important, leather and leather products. Brazil being the biggest in dairy and meat,
animal husbandry.
they had the biggest in leather. So professional attention they give that there is a leather university for leather products only, different designs and different departments. Maybe probably we have our leather, but our finish, our final product is not as good as they have. Probably we can
Exchange of best practices.
exchange
in a
of
sense.
best practices, exchange of expertise, exchange of knowledge sharing. These things can be done. And one more thing that we can probably, we are trying to emulate, that social security. You see, in Brazil there is something called Bolsa Familia, family package, which India has emulated.
It's a left-wing government there.
Yeah.
Pardon?
It's a left-wing government there.
Yes,
Yeah.
but even during the Bolsonaro's,
Regime.
that was not discontinued.
Because
What
it would have
happens
been
is,
very unpopular
what
had it
happens
been
is
discontinued.
that the Reserve Bank of Brazil, which is Banco do Brasil, it has got data of all the citizens, all people. So, and it decides a line of poverty. So, at any given point of time, families living below line of poverty, they are given subsidy, they are given a package, monthly package. The package is subject to three conditions. One, they vote in the elections, they don't abstain. Two, their children go to school, their reports card should be uploaded and sent. Three, their children go to healthcare centers, they all go to healthcare centers. And biggest thing is that this money is transferred not into the account of head of the person, head of the house. Because the Brazilian government officials, that men folk may squander it in drinking, in booze. Lady gets it, subject to these three. Secondly, you see, in places like city of Rio de Janeiro, slum tourism has taken place.
Favelas.
Favelas slum tourism. I have taken Kumari Shailja for one of them.
I wanted to ask you, is there a lesson to be learned there as well for India, because India is rapidly urbanizing, and urban reality is that when you build big cities, slums also come up, and slum management could be something that perhaps we could take a closer look at where Rio is concerned.
Well, slums are equally dangerous there as well.
Yes.
But the government, talks to, government discusses it with the leaders of the local slum, you can say gundas, dadas or leaders. And they say that you don't disturb when the tourists come. Let them have peaceful tour. And not only that, they have, like in Rio, the neighboring hilltops have been connected by subsidized cable cars, which work as roads. I mean, if you have to go to another hill for work, cable car is available for that. At subsidized.
And despite the crime, Rio again has a vibrant nightlife as well. There's Lapa, of course, which is a world famous nightlife spot. So that is also something, and Carnival as well in Rio.
Yes.
So these are things that Brazil is known
tourism,
for.
Yeah, between India and Brazil. Now we are bringing you visuals of delegation level talks between India and Brazil. You can see President Lula da Silva sitting across Prime Minister Narendra Modi in the delegation level talks, an extensive delegation on both sides. Earlier, Prime Minister Narendra Modi was introduced to the Brazilian delegation by the Brazilian President, and the Brazilian President was introduced to the Indian delegation by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. A very animated President Lula da Silva engaged in conversations with the Indian side, particularly his counterpart, Prime Minister Narendra Modi.
Yes, President Lula, you can see in these images also engaging very, very passionately and animatedly with the Indian side. Prime Minister Modi in these images at least is listening in, but I'm sure he would have had his own remarks to make, and it is clear that India and Brazil are working very, very intensely on ensuring that this relationship it's built upon very rapidly and taken to the extent that it should have been many years earlier.
Yes, there are at least 4 pacts that are expected between the two sides, one on counterterrorism, one on exchange of confidential information, one on agricultural cooperation.
And also renewable energy.
So these 4 are the areas from which we expect definitive outcomes, but there could be more. And diplomatic relations were established, if you go back in history, in 1948, with both countries opening the embassies the same year. And since then, a lot of water has flown down the bridge, because we are now seeing a strategic partnership which was agreed to in 2006, and this visit of the Prime Minister is expected to be a significant milestone in the India-Brazil strategic partnership.
And Ambassador Tripathi, do you think the kind of talks that the leaders are having, it shows the kind of familiarity they've also developed with each other, because they've had very frequent meetings in recent years?
Pardon, come again?
The familiarity that the two leaders have developed with each other because of their frequent meetings
Yes.
in recent years.
Yes, it can be very much seen there. I mean, the type of chemistry, the type of natural ease, natural comfort that both leaders have with each other. It shows that both leaders they have come from grassroots, they have risen from grassroots. They know their people, they know the problems of their people, and therefore they know that other leader also, their counterpart, interlocutor, will also know the problems similarly. So that gives a sense of familiarity, a sense of togetherness.
Yes, what do you make, Professor Sachdeva, of the chemistry and the body language? We saw a warm hug, if you would remember, in Rio de Janeiro between the two sides. We saw Prime Minister almost stealing the limelight in that family photo at the start of the BRICS summit. And here we see animated discussions, the red carpet being rolled out for the Prime Minister. Do you think that this really helps in resolving any intricacies or semantics in various issues? I mean, if there are any, because you see, deal making is never easy, and there is an art of the deal. So, in that case, do you think that such understanding and trust in the relationship, which is also reflected in their body language and chemistry, really helps in resolving contentious, intractable issues, if any?
Let me just add to that. Does it really convey that basically India and Brazil are aligned in almost every major issue that confronts the world, and there are hardly basically zero divergences?
Yes, I mean, both are actually veterans, Prime Minister Modi and President Lula. And as Ambassador Tripathi was, mentioning, I mean, they're grassroots leaders. They know what is required in their own country. At the same time, they are also fully aware of their global responsibilities. It's not really deal making, because there's hardly any deal to be made, in that sense, difficult deal between India and Brazil. I mean, that whatever, few agreements which are going to be signed, I think those agreements would have already been, I would say, negotiated between the, teams from both the countries. Now, this particular kind of meeting and the close chemistry between two leaders can really lead us to a new level of partnership between these two countries. Because there is a huge potential to be tapped between both the countries, because India is a growing economy, big economy. Similarly, Brazil is also very, very important economy in this part of the world, and very important global economy. And they also provide certain leadership to the global south. So here the idea is that the problem again, these countries are of the countries of the global south. Both, the economies were closed economies to some extent. They also followed the import substitution strategy in both the countries for quite long, and both these countries are also highly bureaucratized. So that could be one reason that actually our business sectors also find sometimes difficult to operate. But now things are changing. Time is limited, so they really have to move fast if you really want to take advantage of each other's kind of expansion in the economies. And when we were mentioning about the Mercosur preferential trade agreements, or whether we can have bilateral trade agreement, etc. But the bilateral trade, as we know, will take much longer. It's even if we haven't even started ever that we are going to have a trade agreement with Brazil. But even if we start, I think it will take much longer, knowing bureaucracies from both sides. So already we have Mercosur PTA. Now at least what we can do is we can improve what we already have. So if certain commodities were there about 450, maybe the commodities could be 1,000. Maybe the tariff rates could go down further for both the countries. So at least, that's relatively easy part to do. And once that start working, maybe in fact, businesses find more opportunity that they might even push, that they might even ask from both the countries to go for, further kind of bilateral or other kind of multilateral trade agreement between India and Brazil, and also perhaps with the region. But at the same, both the businesses from both countries also a bit concerned, because sometimes they also produce a lot of agriculture commodities. We also produce a lot of agriculture commodities, etc. So we feel perhaps that these economies can't really have more. There is a problem because our industries might suffer. But things are, we are anyway opening with so many other countries of the world. If we can have actually trade agreement with the United States tomorrow, and we are negotiating with the European Union, I'm sure we can also have trade agreement with many other developing countries, even if they are slightly in advance in some areas with us. But we are also having comparative advantage in many other sectors as well. So there are possibilities. So we have to really move fast. And that momentum, which has been created by this visit of the Prime Minister to, particularly to Brazil, and also earlier to Argentina, to some extent, this visit in that case has brought Latin America and Brazil and Argentina to our radar screen. So now, we have to continue working, not just only, be satisfied with the, 3-4 agreement which are going to be signed, but much more ambitious, and take this whole, relationship to a, much bigger, I would say, partnership, where solid trade partnership and a lot of opportunities there, and also working together. As in fact, Ambassador was mentioning, I mean, they also have a lot of, development experiences. They also have a lot of development initiatives, which perhaps many other countries in the global south, including India, perhaps can also learn. Similarly, all the experiments, what we have done in the last 10, 15 years, whether in DPI or in, financial inclusion, or in, many other areas, or women-led development, or life, etc. All these things, what major initiative which we feel that we are successful, whether digitization of our agriculture, digitization of our health services, and many more areas within the India stack. I think that could be useful to work together with country like Brazil, and that can also benefit many other countries in Latin America and in global south. We can work together on many fronts. So there is many things which can be achieved actually after this visit, not just only few agreements. And for that, there is no difficult deal. There is a chemistry, there is a comfort level between these two countries, and they also, in fact, know that there is a now responsibility, because that there is nobody there in the world to give leadership to many of the, pressing problems of the world, and countries can come together within global south, and they can do something which others are not really bothered, including climate change and other major issues.
Yes.
Well, certainly a lot to be done there as well, and India and Brazil can definitely make a huge difference where ensuring that climate responsibility is practiced by all countries. But let's just sum up, Munmun, quickly for all our viewers what has happened so far in the day, where the proceedings in Brasilia are concerned, where Prime Minister Modi has gone on a state visit, an Indian Prime Minister going there after a gap of 7 years,
yeah,
and where he was
decades,
accorded a grand ceremonial reception. How many horses?
As per reports, there were around 114 horses
Yeah.
that had welcomed the Prime Minister. So, a very grand reception, like Gautam said, laying out the red carpet in the true sense. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi had in fact landed in Brasilia last evening, where he was received by a cultural troupe. And we know that there are various Indian classical performances like or dance forms like Bharatnatyam, even Urishi and Kathak that are quite popular there. And there at the reception, we saw that Ram Bhajan being played in honor of the Prime Minister. So that was a very soulful spiritual rendition in honor of the Prime Minister. And now we know the delegation level talks are currently underway. We also expect MOUs to be exchanged between the two sides and press statements. But all that after a short break. Stay tuned to this special broadcast.